Good evening. You're watching the News at 6. The News at 6 is all about the day's biggest developing stories. I'm Ishan Russell. And of course, all the developments today packed over the next half hour. But first, the headlines. President Pranab Mukherjee clears the land ordinance re-promulgated by the centre, paving the way for replacing the bill passed in the Lok Sabha with 9 amendments. Face-off continues between the ruling BJP and opposition parties over the proposed land bill. AAP Chief Arvind Kejriwal to join protests against the bill. At least 300 more Indians evacuated from Yemen to reach home tonight. Air India flights allowed to airlift stranded Indians from the capital, Sana'a. World leaders hail efforts as Iran strikes historic deal on its nuclear program. Accepts most of the terms, helping in lifting heavy sanctions. And Saina Nehwal continues her winning run. The world number 1 reaches the semi-finals of the Malaysia Open after a tough quarter-final encounter. Well, our top story this evening, the BJP today opened a frontal attack on the opposition, the Congress party, on the issue of the land bill. In its national executive meeting in Bengaluru, the contentious land acquisition bill was the top focus. Meanwhile, in an apparent shot in the arm for the government, the land acquisition ordinance has been re-promulgated with President Pranab Mukherjee signing the orders today.
Attacking the Congress-led opposition for deliberately spreading misgivings about the land acquisition bill, BJP has said the party should stop finding faults with the government and instead look within. In his inaugural address at the two-day BJP National Executive meeting, Party President Amit Shah sought to rally the rank and file around the controversial bill, reiterating that it was pro-farmer and the BJP was committed to the welfare of the poor. The party president's stand was backed by its leaders. Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar said Shah attacked Congress for fueling confusion over the bill and said the opposition party had looted farmers for the last 60 years.
कांग्रेस ने बहुत गलत फहमी फैलाने की प्रयास किया, लेकिन 60 साल ब्रिटिशों के कानून से किसानों की लूट कांग्रेस ने की। 60 साल कांग्रेस ने पुराने कानून के आधार पर किसानों को लूटा, लाखों हेक्टर जमीन अधिग्रहित हुई, उनको न्याय नहीं दिया। अब वो किस मुंह से बोलते हैं?
The land acquisition bill which had been passed by Lok Sabha will also get the sanction of the Rajya Sabha in the second part of the budget session. So we are confident that barring Congress, most other political parties would support this bill.
Key land reforms are at the center of the government's economic agenda. That is why the BJP is preparing an action plan to counter opposition to it.
BJP is fighting perception battle on the issue of land bill, and in this meeting, party is planning to make a strategy to counter opposition's campaign on the ground. With cameraman Suresh, this is Shyam Sundar for Rajya Sabha TV, Bengaluru.
And our correspondent Shyam Sundar, as you saw, is in Bangalore, and he's been tracking all these developments that have been happening at the BJP National Executive. He joins us on the phone line live from there. Shyam, the BJP's go aggressive strategy on the land acquisition bill. Now the president's also signed it, so the party really going to go all out on this one.
Well, Ishan, today the party president Amit Shah in his speech claimed that BJP is a pro-farmer party, and not only in the country but on international forums like WTO, they protected the farmers' interests. There was a tremendous pressure on India to do away with minimum support price for farmers, but Modi government decided not to surrender in front of this pressure, and farmers' interests were protected at the WTO also. And he claimed that for the last 50-60 years, Congress regime farmers, and now Modi government feels that farmers and industrialization will also take place, and they claim that party has prepared a strategy to counter opposition's charges, and every allegation of the opposition will be replied properly, and BJP's activists and leaders, they will go on the ground and they will talk to farmers unions, and they will go to issue and convince people that amendment in Land Acquisition Act is in the interest of farmers and the country.
Right, Shyam, thanks very much for that update. Shyam, of course, keeping a tracker, the BJP also will be organizing its ways to garner support and change perception on the land ordinance. The opposition parties, on the other hand, are doing their bit as well. The Congress has already begun groundwork against the contentious bill, with party President Sonia Gandhi meeting farmers in different states, urging them to oppose the new bill.
Opposition parties led by the Congress have condemned the repromulgation of the land ordinance, terming it a bad precedent set by the NDA government. The Congress reaffirmed its stand against the land ordinance.
It is extremely unfortunate that they have chosen again the ordinance way. This is a ordinance bill where the Congress has raised many questions. Farmers all across the country have raised issues. The Congress party will continue to fight against this in Parliament and on the streets with the farmers.
Congress President Sonia Gandhi has already begun the groundwork to block the passage of the new land bill. Travelling through several districts in different states, Gandhi has been meeting farmers, telling them about what she calls draconian measures in the new bill. CPI too lashed out at the NDA government for pushing through a legislation which will only benefit corporate houses and industrialists.
ये बिल किसानों की जमीन को छीन लेगा। ये बिल 2013 के भूमि अधिग्रहण कानून की तमाम महत्वपूर्ण उपलब्धियां जो है किसान पक्षी उन सबको खत्म कर रहा है, और यह बिल वास्तविकता में जमीनों पर कब्जा कर रहा है। कॉर्पोरेट घरानों, भूमि माफिया और बिल्डर लॉबी के लिए बनाया गया है।
Delhi Chief Minister and Aam Aadmi Party Chief Arvind Kejriwal is also set to address a rally against the bill in the national capital, and on 22nd April he is likely to lead a march to the parliament.
हमारी जो तैयारी है वो इस बात को लेकर है कि भूमि अधिग्रहण बिल के खिलाफ जो देश के अंदर रोष है और गुस्सा है, खासतौर से किसानों के अंदर, वो संसद के बैठे हुए लोगों को पता होना चाहिए, और इसके लिए ही हम लोग ये संसद मार्च का कार्यक्रम रख रहे हैं।
Other parties opposing the proposed land bill include Samajwadi Party, BSP, CPIM, TMC, JDU and the RJD. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And Congress party workers staged a massive protest outside the venue of the BJP's National Executive Meet in Bengaluru today. Through their protest, they targeted the BJP on the issue of black money. They held aloft 15 fake checks worth 15 lakh rupees made to every citizen of India. The checks were shown to be signed by the Prime Minister. The police, however, stopped the protesters from proceeding nearer to the venue. The Congress accused the ruling party of going back on its promises made during campaigning for national elections last year.
We would like to ask him what happened to your promise which you made last year that you would bring back 100 black money within 100 days and give every citizen of India their share of 15 lakhs. You seems to have forgotten that promise. We are going to ask him what happened to your promise which you made to the farmers of this country, that you would be protected, your lands will be protected, you will get full value to your produce. What happened to your promise? You have gone back and enacted an ordinance which will arbitrarily acquire the lands without their consent and without social impact assessment.
Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is keen that India hosts the 2024 edition of the Olympics. He is expected to discuss the possibility of bidding for the biggest sporting event of the world with the International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach when he visits New Delhi later this month. According to sources, Sports Secretary Ajit Charan has already met IOC officials in Lausanne, Switzerland last month to initiate talks on the matter. Although no venue has been formally discussed yet, Ahmedabad may emerge as the chosen city for the Games. India has never hosted an Olympics but has the experience of hosting other major sporting events like the Asian Games and the Commonwealth Games.
अगर ये ओलंपिक के लिए बिड करना चाहते हैं तो जो हमारे यहाँ की हालत है इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर की, हर कुछ लेट, तो ऐसे ओलंपिक के लिए तो सोच भी नहीं सकते। तो पहले तो इनको अपनी सिस्टम को फॉर्म में लाना पड़ेगा। और जहां तक बात खिलाड़ियों की है, देखिए, जब आप ओलंपिक कर रहे हैं और अगर आप खुदा ना खास्ता विन कर भी गए तो आपके 50 मेडल तो होने चाहिए। अब जो हालत है हमारी फेडरेशंस की, उसमें पूरा ओवरऑल चेंज की जरूरत है।
All the other national news and updates nationwide. A day after the flood threat eased a bit in the valley, parts of Jammu and Kashmir experienced heavy rainfall again today. Water level in the Jhelum and other rivers was reported to be rising due to the heavy downpour. However, the weather is expected to improve in the next few days. The Jammu-Srinagar National Highway remained closed for traffic for the third day due to landslides. A three-day judges conference began in Delhi today. The meeting is expected to deal with issues like judicial reforms and ways to ensure speedy trial of cases. However, the decision to hold the meeting during the Good Friday and Easter weekend has irked a section of the judges. A Supreme Court judge wrote to the Chief Justice of India objecting to the dates. Earlier, a plea by another Supreme Court judge to change the dates was turned down. The National Green Tribunal has sought explanation from the central government and the Uttarakhand state government on the unregulated operations of rafting camps in Shivpuri and Rishikesh region. The government has assured that it will not grant permission to any new camp till the next hearing in May. No time for a quick break right now, but coming up on the other side, all the international news, the death toll in the Kenyan university attack has gone up to 147. More on that on the other side.
बीजेपी राष्ट्रीय कार्यकारिणी की बैठक, सरकार के कार्यकाल का ब्यौरा पेश, जनाधार मजबूत करने पर चर्चा। देखिए पहली खबर, बीजेपी का मंथन, आज रात 8 बजे।
तरकश में आज हम बात करेंगे केंद्रीय मंत्री चौधरी वीरेंद्र सिंह से। ऐसा बिल जिस पर एक आम राय बनी, उसको बदलने की जरूरत 2 साल के अंदर क्यों पड़ रही है?
जब देश का संविधान बना, उस संविधान की संरचना में पूरा देश की सहमति थी। समय के साथ साथ अब उसमें 100 से ज्यादा संशोधन हुए हैं।
सरकार कॉर्पोरेट का फायदा कराने के लिए संशोधन कराना चाह रही है।
प्रधानमंत्री जी ने भी सदन में ये कहा है कि हम किसान की भूमि किसी गैर सरकारी को नहीं देंगे।
संसद से इस बिल को कैसे आप पास कराएं?
अगर राजनीतिक पहलू से कोई देखेगा तो शायद हमारा समर्थन ना करे, वरना ये देश हित के लिए है।
देखिए तरकश, शनिवार रात 8:30 बजे और 11:30 बजे।
Welcome back. You're watching the news at 6. Now, the government has evacuated over 300 more stranded Indians in Yemen last night. They're expected to reach home on special Air India planes, which were given clearance to airlift them from the strife-torn country. According to the External Affairs Minister, at least 500 more Indians are expected to be evacuated soon.
Indian forces' operation to evacuate stranded Indians from Yemen continues. Over 300 more Indians were rescued on Tuesday night after the first batch of 349 stranded people reached home early on Thursday. They will be airlifted from Djibouti to bring them back home.
In the first phase, we have been able to evacuate by ship more than 700 Indian nationals. The first of them, more than 350, have come back home. Another shipload is on the way to Djibouti. And we hope that by this evening, 300 of them will be back.
So far, Indian Navy and Air Force have rescued over 800 Indians caught in the crossfire in Yemen. So far, majority of Indians were rescued by Navy vessel INS Sumitra. It had evacuated 350 Indians from Aden on Tuesday night and rescued over 300 from Al Hudaya on Thursday night. Several more are waiting to be rescued.
हमको तो बस यही है कि हमारे माता पिता तथा जो भी साथ में गए बुआ की फैमिली वो जल्दी से जल्दी भारत लौटे।
There was more hope for the Indians based in Yemen as Air India was given clearance to evacuate them from capital Sana'a. Special Air India planes will make 4 sorties to bring them home in batches. The External Affairs Ministry said around 500 more Indians are expected to be evacuated in the ongoing operation.
If all goes well, we hope that we will be able to begin our air evacuation from Sana'a. We also intend, subject to receiving all clearances, to repatriate approximately 500 of our nationals from Sana'a to Djibouti, and then later tomorrow they will come back home.
Nearly 2,500 Indians are waiting in Sana'a to flee the country rocked by Saudi airstrikes targeting the Houthi rebel bases. This is the fourth major evacuation which the centre has undertaken in the last 1 year, including operations in Ukraine, Iraq and Libya. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, the ground situation in Yemen remains tense. Houthi rebels have stormed the presidential palace in Aden following heavy clashes. According to the United Nations, over 500 people have been killed and nearly 1,700 injured in 2 weeks of fighting in Yemen. The violence has sharply escalated in Yemen following a Saudi-led air campaign launched on the 26th of March to stop an advance by rebels that forced President Mansour Hadi to flee to Saudi Arabia. The Saudi government says that the aim of the operation in Yemen is to protect President Hadi's government. It says it has no plans to deploy ground forces for now.
Don't believe that President Saleh has any role to play in Yemen's future. He spent 35 years or so driving the country into the ground, and he was played a very dark role in the events in Yemen. And so now he was removed, and he continues to cause mischief behind the scenes, and we're doing our best to try to put an end to it.
As Iran reached the all-important framework deal with P5+1 nations over its nuclear program, there are some who are opposed to the agreement. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was quick to convey opposition to the agreement, claiming that it would threaten his country's survival. He said it would increase the risk of nuclear proliferation in the region. Israel has often accused Iran of building nuclear weapons. He said such an agreement will only strengthen Iran's intentions and lend international legitimacy to their destructive efforts. Israel has also said it would not shy away from taking unilateral action to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. However, much of the world appears inclined to support the efforts to reach a negotiated solution with Iran.
This framework is a step in a very, very dangerous direction. It leaves Iran with an expansive nuclear infrastructure, not closing down not even one Iranian nuclear installation. It leaves Iran with thousands of centrifuges to continue enrichment, and it allows Iran to conduct research and development to build new and better centrifuges.
Cet accord, c'est un accord d'étape qui comporte des avancées positives, incontestables, mais il reste encore du travail à faire, puisque nous devrons avoir fini avant le 30 juin.
Iran and 6 major world powers reached the outline agreement late last night. The deal was reached after marathon talks in Switzerland that have been stretched well past the deadline. Under the deal, Iran will reduce its uranium enrichment capacity in exchange for phased sanctions relief.
We have taken a decisive step. We have reached solutions on key parameters of a joint comprehensive plan of action. The political determination, the goodwill, and the hard work of all parties made it possible.
A framework deal at last between Iran and the P5+1 countries after marathon talks in Lausanne over the last 8 days through a missed deadline and 2 exhausting nights of negotiations. Under the deal, Iran will reduce its uranium enrichment capacity in exchange for phased sanctions relief. According to a US fact sheet, Iran will reduce its installed centrifuges used to enrich uranium by 2/3 and reduce its stockpile of low-enriched uranium. The centrifuges that are no longer in use will be placed in storage monitored by the International Atomic Energy Agency (IAEA). All of Iran's nuclear facilities will be subject to regular IAEA inspections. Iran will redesign its heavy water reactor in Arak so that it cannot produce weapons-grade plutonium. US and EU sanctions related to Iran's nuclear program will be lifted in phases but can be brought back if Iran does not meet its obligations. The Iranian foreign minister called the deal an innovative, progressive move.
The participants in this process were interested in seeing to it that this resolution gets implemented, that if we reach an agreement, we can implement the agreement. We're not looking for excuses to violate them. We are looking for safeguards to protect our interests if one side decides to violate its obligations.
Russia welcomed the deal as recognition of Iran's unconditional right to a peaceful nuclear program. France said some questions and details still need to be solved. US President Barack Obama claimed the deal was a victory for America and for the cause of world peace.
The United States, together with our allies and partners, has reached a historic understanding with Iran, which, if fully implemented, will prevent it from obtaining a nuclear weapon. As President and Commander-in-Chief, I have no greater responsibility than the security of the American people.
Negotiators will now start drafting the text of the plan guided by the solutions reached. The world powers and Iran now aim to draft a comprehensive nuclear accord by the 30th of June. But for now, its architects are celebrating a hard-won, potentially historic achievement. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
147 people have been confirmed dead in Thursday's brutal university attack in Kenya. Officials have secured the university college campus with all 4 attackers shot down. Bodies are being shifted to Nairobi for identification. Leaders from around the world have condemned the attack.
Heightened security. Dusk to dawn curfew in northeast Kenya. Ambulances with sirens blazing, moving in and out of Garissa University campus. These were the sites at the college campus where a bloody massacre took place on Thursday. At least 147 people, mostly students, were brutally killed in a shooting spree when Al-Shabaab militants stormed into the campus. The Kenyan leadership assures the situation is now under control.
90% of the threat has been eliminated. We have been able to confirm that 4 terrorists have been killed. The number of the terrorists was never confirmed. So the officers on the ground are saying it's 90% of the threat has been eliminated. So
the bodies of the victims are being moved to Nairobi for identification as mortuaries in Garissa are unable to cope with the numbers coming in. Those critically injured are being airlifted to the capital for specialized treatment.
They are just gunshots. Some they are with more than 1 gunshot. Others are from legs. Others they are headshots. So they were just shooting at random mostly.
Residents blame the government for not heeding to warnings of such an attack. They now demand tighter security in the crime-ridden frontier regions.
Most of us are fearful and we don't know what the government would do unless we are convinced that the security would actually work and put things in place when we may go back. But we are afraid that when the situation continues, then some of us are likely maybe to go back to their places because you cannot work to a place where there is no security at all.
World leaders have condemned the brutal attack. India said the international community needs to further strengthen its fight against terrorism. Prime Minister Narendra Modi described the attack as horrific and utterly condemnable. The UN too offered condolences.
The Secretary-General strongly condemns the terrorist attack this morning on Garissa University College in Kenya, which has left dozens dead and injured, with an unconfirmed number of students held hostage. He conveys his deeply felt condolences to the families of the victims and wishes a speedy recovery to the wounded.
The Al-Shabaab militant group has claimed responsibility for the attack. They are the same insurgents who carried out the Westgate shopping mall massacre in Nairobi in September 2013. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Some more international news and updates in Global Buzz now. With just 35 days until the UK goes to the polls, leaders of the 7 main political parties battled it out in a televised debate. With no clear winner emerging, the results of 4 snap opinion polls show why the election is being widely described as the closest and most unpredictable since the 1970s, with voters naming no less than 4 winners. In an unusual format for Britain, Prime Minister David Cameron faced off against 6 political rivals. Fresh documents released by American whistleblower Edward Snowden claims that Britain spied on the Argentine government for several years. The espionage was reportedly carried out by Britain from 2006 to 2011, as it was concerned that Argentina could launch another attempt to reclaim the Falkland Islands. There has not been a formal response yet from either government. 3 Americans, including 2 women, have been charged in separate cases of plotting terror strikes against the United States. The 2 women were produced before a judge in New York on Thursday. In the complaint, the 2 women are said to be influenced by the Islamic State and conspired to construct a car and pressure cooker bomb to carry out strikes in the US. If convicted, they are to face the possibility of life in prison. The The US Coast Guard have rescued a sailor who has been missing for more than 60 days after his sailboat overturned in January, damaging the boat's communications gear. 37-year-old Louis Jordan was said to be dehydrated and complained of a minor shoulder injury, but was in good spirits. He'd survived on a diet of raw fish and rainwater. Some sports now, and world number 1 shuttler Saina Nehwal has reached the semi-finals of the Malaysia Open today. Continuing her winning run since the Indian Open, Saina defeated China's Sun Yu in a grueling 3-game encounter in the quarterfinals. Saina won the first game easily but conceded the second to her opponent. The final game of the match was about long rallies, with Saina showing renewed energy to carve out an 11-4 lead. The rally for the final point was an outstanding display of athleticism, with Saina bringing out some of her best shots. She will take on top seed and London Olympic champion Li of China in the semis. This will be Saina's third appearance in the Malaysia Open semi-final. All the other action from the world of sports and Sportbeat. World number 1 Serena Williams defeated third seed Simona Halep 6-2, 4-6, 7-5 to reach the finals of the Miami Open. Serena will now meet Spain's Carla Suarez Navarro in the finals on Saturday. Serena will be looking for her 8th Miami Open title. World number 1 Novak Djokovic defeated Spain's David Ferrer 7-5, 7-5 to advance to the Miami Open semi-final. Djokovic will meet John Isner next. Isner defeated Kei Nishikori in the quarterfinals. Isner is bidding to become the first American to lift the Miami title since Andy Roddick in 2010. Meanwhile, Britain's Andy Murray will face Czech Thomas Berdych in the semi-final match on the other side. West Indies off-spinner Sunil Narine underwent biomechanical test for his bowling action in Chennai. The BCCI had made it mandatory for him to get clearance over his action to play in IPL 8, which starts next week. Narayan's IPL team, Kolkata Knight Riders, have already threatened to pull out if Narayan is not allowed to bowl in the tournament. Well, that's it from us, but before we go, Christians across the world offered special prayers in large numbers on the occasion of Good Friday today, commemorating the crucifixion and death of Jesus Christ. We leave you with some visuals. Have a good evening.